Hello, Brooke. Today I want to talk to you about situational variability. I want to ask you, how are ADHD and situational variability related, and what are some tools for it?
Yes. So ADHD and situational variability is when we're interested in something, we are really motivated about something. And to the point where I'm sure a lot of you have heard it before that our ADHD superpower hyper focus comes to play. When we're not interested in something, we actually hypo focus, which basically means that it's our brains are so low in our dopamine levels that we can't activate our brain. We can't get started on the task because the task is so boring itself.
Mhm.
So situational variability can rely on your interest in the topic or your lack of interest in the topic. And it is connected with dopamine. And of course, there are tools to help us with this and get into like this middle state where we might not be totally interested in something, but like have a little bit of level of interest in it and motivation, but
Mhm.
it's not completely boring. And we want to call that intentional focus. I'm sure a lot of us have heard about this before, but regardless if you have ADHD or not, we all come with strengths and challenges, right? So if we are leading with our strengths, we're more likely to lead to success.
Mhm.
And that's just in general. If you are in a position, in a job that you are activating your strengths, you are going to thrive. Your dopamine levels are going to be higher, and you're going to want to hyper focus more because you're interested in it and it's rewarding. Um, then we also have like high and low interest levels. So tasks that are genuinely interesting are easier to engage in, while tasks that are boring are not, which is what we spoke about before.
Mhm.
Then there's tasks that sometimes we have structure with, and sometimes there's some flexibility. So trying to find the right balance between both, because ADHDers thrive on structure but hate it at the same time. So we don't want to feel boxed in by the structure. And we don't want to feel like if we don't follow that structure, we have failed. So we have to put some flexibility in there. And then lastly, another situational context is positive versus negative environments. So we tend to thrive in positive environments and shut down in negative ones. In the negative ones, we can fight, flight, freeze, all of those things.
100%. You know, situational variability, the whole, what it is just, it sounds so common for college students like myself. There's always those classes that they're so boring. You're kind of like, all the way in the back hanging out on your phone, and you're not paying attention. And there's those classes that you're super interested in. I have those classes. I have classes where I can't get enough of it. In some classes, I'm like, oh goodness, we're back here. But
Exactly.
what I've come to realize is you bring it up, the strengths. Figure out what you're interested in, how you learn. Are you visual, auditory? Do you like going to the office hours for the teacher? Do you like sitting up front? Just figure out your strength, what's going to reel you in, and also try to stay engaged. And what I mean by staying engaged is human beings are super engaging. At least that's what I think. Having groups around you and discussing, talking back and forth. So I think it's super important. A lot of classes these days have WhatsApp group chats and email lists. They provide you all the students, the whole list, all the names, and you can reach out to all of them. Every semester I get, I'd say, most of my classes, someone always emails the whole school list and says, here's a WhatsApp invite, join. And you should see every day there's so many notifications going on in the WhatsApp group chat. I think it's super important to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't join them. Sometimes we put it on do not disturb. Go ahead though. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, and that can definitely help with your accountability as far as following through on studying and on homework. but it also is that support. So if you need to vent or you need to unload, you have that person there who
Yes.
can understand you and is going through it with you, and that can help you see the positive over the negative, or continue to feel interested in the subject.
100%. Yeah. Like when you guys, share the same, thoughts on the professor, on the material, on whatever it is you guys talk, and that helps you build relationships too. It helps it stick, helps you study together. Two brains are better than one always. That's a super important tool. I think that's helped me with situational variability when there's those things that are pretty boring. Trying to talk and trying to sit in front at the front of class. I've brought this up before. Sometimes the professor will pick on you and ask a question. You're like, uh-oh, so that gives you that, oh, I gotta pay attention, that type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. And I feel like also a lot of times, so you find your strengths, you find your values, you find your passion, you find things that you feel positive about that. So that all is going to help you gain that motivation, get that dopamine, and be more interested so you can eventually potentially get into a hyper focused state. But if you can't, breaking down the task into that 1% that we've spoken about can help you see the value in getting to the bigger goal. So when goals are so like looming and glooming, we often shut down and don't see that we can get there. But if we can make it a little bit more motivational, a little bit more exciting, smaller, bite sized, then we can very often do it. Like say, okay, I'm going to maybe walk or jog today rather than run, or I'm going to get on my gym clothes and just get out there for 5 minutes rather than doing this huge workout that you may or may not be interested in doing.
Yes, 100%. And I like how you bring up adding that little something that's going to make it more motivating, increase that, that dopamine, those
Yeah.
dopamine bursts. It's really important. Sometimes, we're in class and we can't pay attention. Something that can increase your dopamine and motivation, or just focus in general. Because what dopamine's it's a chemical in your brain. You know what I mean? It's one currency for all different types of motivation. And I think a fidget spinner, maybe having a little snack, that increases maybe your dopamine, helps you pay attention longer. Um, those little small things that, as long as you continue to pay attention, obviously you're not watching TV on the side or scrolling through Instagram, something that can help you pay attention. This is obviously in the class setting. There's so many other things you could do. Say you're cleaning your room, or you're doing busy work, listening to music, podcasts, things like that. Just
Yeah,
adding those layers of things that just increase your motivation.
absolutely.
Yeah, during the activity you're doing, it's super important. And I think, this all falls under the umbrella of structure. You also brought that up. Planning, scheduling, those are super important. Those will always relieve the stress and that hypo-focus mode. Sometimes we're in hypo-focus mode because we haven't planned anything. We need a mind map. Sometimes I'm freaking out. That's the coordination part, executive function part of ADHD. Where do I start? Where do I begin? So
Right. And right. And you're so right. And also give yourself grace. When we hyper focus, when we figure out how to get into our hyper focused state, we use so much dopamine that it's peaked that you're likely to crash the next day.
mhm,
So know that if you are in this hyper focused state for long periods of time, which is a superpower, prepare yourself that the next day you're likely not going to have that energy that you might be looking for, and know that that's okay.
exactly. Accepting that, I think it's super important because and when you fall into hyperfocus, you might hit that a little burnt out a little bit. And having the grace, I like that word a lot. I couldn't agree more.